Hello there, welcome to my review of the Rockford Files Season 4, Episode 16, The Paper Palace, written by Juanita Bartlett and directed by Richard Crenna. Yes, that Richard Crenna.
I didn't come here to rescue Rambo from you. I came here to rescue you from him.
The episode begins with a woman, Rita Kapkovich, played by Rita Moreno, being arrested, before Dennis comes and bails her out as a friend. It's intimated that she's a snitch and also a sex worker, with various levels of subtlety.
Hi, Rita. How's tricks?
The hell are you crying about, Rita? Didn't have change for a $5?
While she gets emotional over how Dennis thinks of her, Jim is waiting for him and both have a run-in with Chapman.
Hop to it, Billy. Sergeant Becker wouldn't want to keep Mr. Rockford waiting.
I was in the neighborhood, and you know what a kick I get out of watching you play Nazi.
While I normally let the story get going a little more, I think it's essential that I note how sensitive the show attempts to treat Rita. Not in spite of, but because of her profession. The cops display varying degrees of insensitivity towards her. Even Dennis, who is trying to do his best but failing when he bumps up against the truth.
You just want to give me a pat on the head before you kick me back out on the street.
But it's Moreno's portrayal and how her character is written that really fleshes out what could have been a cheap punchline. Yes, she's a sex worker, but that doesn't mean she's not a human being or that she is a bad person. She's been helping Dennis with information that has furthered his career for the last 17 years, but is not allowed any recognition or even basic kindness when she's not needed. She gets lonely, sad and depressed just like everyone else. It's remarkably sensitive for the time, especially when you consider this attitude to sex work continues to this day.
Most people make friends from who they work with. So where does that leave me? If we were friends, I could ask you and Peggy over and make dinner some night and...
While Dennis might be swayed by her argument, Peggy is not as easy to convince.
You bring a woman like that into the house and you want her to sit down at the dinner table with Eleanor and Sid Loft?
The Lofts show us the kind of people they really are, as they make everyone squirm over Peggy's roast dinner.
The last-minute get-together?
We were invited 2 weeks ago.
Sydney isn't much of a meat eater, particularly so late at night.
It's a little after 8 o'clock.
Yes.
You and Dennis here, you friends quite a while?
Which brings me on to one question that has been puzzling me since the very first time I watched this episode.
This is really great. I mean, Yorkshire pudding and everything.
Thank you.
Why does the writer of this episode and all the characters in the scene understand what a Yorkshire pudding is? And yet no one I've ever spoken to from the US have any idea. For those of you unaware, it's a basic pancake batter that is baked in hot oil in the oven until it rises into this shape, and is a staple of British roasts. But I find it hard to believe that this knowledge is restricted in the US to this small pocket of Southern California in the late 1970s. So can someone explain why no American I've spoken to has heard of it, and that here it is in the Rockford Files?
Some roast beef, Sydney?
Oh, thank you.
Anyway, back to the story. Jim takes Rita home, and she mentions in passing how she was nearly set upon a few nights earlier, giving us a few hints of the plot that is to come, only for Jim to spot the exact same car that attacked her, returning in just enough time to break it up, but getting knocked out for his troubles. Dennis is none too happy when Jim and Rita report this to him, displaying the usual helpful attitude towards violence against sex workers.
Now, you think you could assign a couple of men to her for protection?
Chapman will think it's some John with a beef.
Rita wants to hire Jim, as she has no idea what this is all about, and knows it will never be a priority for the police. So Jim takes the case, while Rita goes to stay with her most unlikely friend.
I've got a full house!
Miss Kapkovich?
Hi, how are you?
Despite being well into the second act at this point, with no real sense of what's going on, it doesn't feel like the story is moving too slowly. Rita is such an interesting character who really requires the kind of setup she's given. And because of this, it remains entertaining and fun throughout, with just enough drama and pathos to keep the intrigue fairly high. We can't be entirely certain that she's clueless to her current predicament, and just using Dennis for protection. But because the character is so well fleshed out, it doesn't feel like she's duping us or Jim, which is why it comes as a surprise when the two French goons are able to track her down at her safe house so quickly. While Jim watches Rita's apartment, where the goons should be looking for her, tragedy strikes. As Rita's out shopping, the French goons gun poor Maggie down when she fights back. With the cops on the scene, now taking it seriously, it seems things might actually get investigated. But when Dennis traces the goons' license plates as stolen from a hockey game featuring a Canadian team, even this isn't enough for Chapman to take Rita seriously.
A nice little old lady letting somebody like you through the front door and ending up dead.
This is a really clever plot device, with just enough foreshadowing done at just the right time to drive the plot forward without it feeling forced. The only way the French-speaking goons could have found Maggie's house is if they were tipped off, and the only people who could have tipped them off were Maggie's earlier house guests. Jim immediately suspects Woodruff, due to his business relationship with Maggie and her late husband, and quickly works out that Woodruff was bilking Maggie out of her fair share of their now multi-million-dollar business partnership.
But if Maggie's husband was into this kind of setup, why was she living in that dump on Western?
He still doesn't know exactly how Rita fits into all this, or how he's going to prove any of it, though. So Jim and Rita follow Woodruff to a private party for the Ottawa Otters and confront him, setting a trap for him, only to get an unexpected visit from Sid Loft, right before the goons arrive, and much to the delight of Dennis.
Sid, what are you doing here?
With the goons and Woodruff arrested, they finally discover that the reason Rita was the initial target is because Maggie put her in her will, and if the old woman had died, Woodruff's embezzling would have immediately been found out. And Jim gets an odd reward from Rita for his assistance.
Oh, well, now, hey, that is more like it. It's a beauty.
It's yours.
This is another classic episode with just the right amount of character development, a great plot that gives away just enough at just the right times and keeps you guessing the rest of the time, and is paced just right. You could argue that it was convenience that Woodruff was at Maggie's when Rita arrived, but as Maggie didn't suspect he was up to no good and he was a regular visitor of hers, that was more to introduce him to us, as he could have shown up at her house at any time without it changing the outcome of the plot. It wasn't clearly explained why they were going after Rita at that particular time, but I think it's fair to assume it was merely convenience, as Woodruff's goons were in town anyway. So you'd really have to be looking for holes to be unsatisfied with those elements of the story that are not made explicit. I also think it manages to get the tone just right, with enough humour to add levity without taking away from Rita's personal struggles or the horrific murder of poor Maggie. And having Sid Loft show up at the end gave us a really entertaining out, showing Rita helping Dennis in and out of work. For me, this is another 5 out of 5. Thank you. Goodbye.